Xbox, Xbox. Pull up a chair. We got to have a conversation. Most of the time, this channel is very playful. You know, I give you my opinions. Regardless how you feel about them or not, you know those are my opinions and my opinions only. But today we got to have it like a serious conversation. What's going on, you guys? Gaming Ad here, coming at you with another video. Today we're going to be talking about Microsoft raising their prices and what is the future of not just the hardware, but the ecosystem with the way they have been moving here lately. Now, still a little bit of a backstory for those of you that's been living under a rock. I don't think the majority of you need this backstory, but we gotta educate the people that need it. Microsoft has went more of a we're publishing everywhere type of mentality when it comes to Xbox. They have published all their games, or not all of them, but probably going forward, the majority of their games are going everywhere day and date. Originally, I thought, okay, this is not a good look for the hardware, but as long as they keep timed exclusives, because I've said very strongly from the start, timed exclusives are important. I felt like they would do decent regardless, because they're going to have a huge sustainable amount of games that is going into not only Game Pass, but the Xbox platform as a timed exclusive because of stuff like we saw Vowed, Hellblade. But then you look at something like The Outer Worlds 2 and how it's a multi-plat. So my assumption is, for the most part, the exclusives, the timed exclusives, is going to be more of the exception, not the rule. You're going to get more games going multi-plat than everything, and that's fine. But what you have gotten here is this situation that is going on right now with the Xbox platform. Now, obviously, you guys can disagree with me in the comment section below. You know, there's this like crazy conception of like what I want. So I'm going to just be honest what I want in terms of the gaming industry. I particularly like to play on console, such as this here, PlayStation, Switch. You know, I mainly have had them all from the beginning of time. So, in my personal opinion, anything that goes close to even potentially risking not only the console, but the money flowing towards the console, the money flowing towards the ecosystem, I find myself being more defensive with those kind of situations. And that's generally where I sit. I'm an Xbox gamer that likes to play on Xbox, and if you put situations in check that might potentially risk me from being able to play on that, I don't care if it's 5 years from now, I'm gonna feel away. So we all knew this was happening. They've been more and more open about it, and we saw one of the biggest things that they could do. A couple weeks ago, they raised all the prices on just about everything. They raised the prices on the consoles. They raised the prices on everything, really, that the Xbox was offering. And I think that is where I initially saw where it's like, okay, we are at this point, in my opinion. Now, obviously, I've always stated, and I've been very clear with this, this is my opinion. This is the reasoning that I believe that they raised the prices, because keep in mind, they raised it not only with accessories, they also raised with hardware. Now Nintendo, they went the other way, and they actually raised it with just the accessories currently. Now, obviously, we don't get political on this channel, because to me, politics don't belong in gaming. But when there is policies that are put in place that affect the gaming industry, we kind of got to talk about it. In America, we're threatening tariffs. And so what did that normally reach to? You know, these companies like Microsoft, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, Sony, they use countries such as, you know, China to manufacture these goods. And then they port them back over to the States. Now, the problem with this is it's going to increase the price of that general system. Now, Nintendo, they actually came out there and they said, look, we're going to put pause on the pre-ordering process because we got to figure out exactly what happens. Then they ended up raising the prices on a bunch of goods, but they kept the Nintendo portion out of there. They kept the Switch 2 itself because they know that Switch 2 coming out at $450, which was probably already having some kind of, tariff response, or maybe they just wanted the system to be $450, which that's definitely a possibility. I don't want these companies these people to think that these companies aren't against them doing stuff like that. So then it comes to the Xbox. Now, Microsoft raised a significant amount of stuff, and the funny thing is, when you look at it, we're gonna look at it right here. Sorry about I gotta reset this. So, but when you look at it here, and I'm gonna go ahead and resize this. Normally I have this a little bit better. I don't know what happened there. But when you look at it, these are the things that Xbox raised the prices on. Now let's go over these listings a little bit, and then we're gonna. There is a broadened perspective on what I want to go over. So they raised the Xbox Series S 512 gigabytes from 300 to 379. They raised the S terabyte from 350 to 430. They raised the Xbox Series X digital from 450 to 549. So that's $100 increase. The Xbox Series X was raised also by $100 from $500 to $600, and the Xbox Series X 2 terabyte Galaxy Black, which I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I didn't even know this sucker was around anymore. I thought it was one of those things that comes around for a holiday and then they just get rid of it. I didn't know they were making it into a permanent SKU, but they got raised from $600 to $729. They also raised some of the accessories, like the Xbox wireless controller special edition. They raised that by 10. They raised the limited edition by 10. They raised the Xbox Elite controller Series 2 full, looks like, by 20. And then they raised the Xbox wireless headset by 10. Now, look, was the tariffs the reasoning behind this? Yes. I do think that the tariffs were the direct culprit that led to these price increases. Do I think that Microsoft or Xbox cares to raise prices? No, not even a little bit. Here's the thing. I told people for a long time there were consequences to Xbox no longer caring whether or not they sell hardware or not. And this is one of the things. PlayStation didn't raise their prices. Nintendo Switch only raised the prices of accessories. They didn't raise the actual hardware. And the reason they have stayed away from this is because in the void of politics, you never know where these are going to go. You never know what is a bluff, what's not a bluff. You never know how strong one side's going to be over the other. And it does seem like Nintendo and PlayStation were willing to wait it out a little bit. Now, do I think that they were immune to raising the prices of the Switch 2 and all the PlayStation stuff? No. If this was not done, because we're going to get to it, the tariffs have been paused, I think for 90 days, PlayStation then would have most definitely raised their prices. But PlayStation and Nintendo are still trying to sell hardware. So that's one of the things they were not willing to touch or even engage in at the moment, unless they absolutely had to. Microsoft's been very clear they don't care if they sell hardware anymore. So when you have that kind of mentality, you're like, look, man, we could raise the prices, get a little bit more money. There it goes. And not to mention, the hardware ain't selling that great as it is. So to me, this is going to lead to this even being worse, this selling even worse. You know, the holidays is getting to the point where it's crazy. Now you're going to get to these holiday sales where they're just going to give you a reduction in price just so you can say, they're going to be like, okay, we raised it by $100 8 months ago. But you know what? Just for you, we're going to give you $100 off this holiday. So you're essentially just paying for what you were paying for at the beginning. It's crazy because you never really see this in hardware. You never really see the early adopters get the better deal. Usually, the way consoles go is the longer the console's out, the cheaper it is to manufacture, the more, things that console owners and console manufacturers are willing to do to sell that product. So you always have better deals, more game bundles, more controller bundles, deeper discounts. And you have that towards the end. Now, obviously, look, Xbox hasn't been selling that well. Now, you could look and you could blame that on this, you could blame that on that. I think there's a variety of factors, a variety of variables that's led to where the Xbox brand is currently. From how the Xbox 2013 launch of the Xbox One to the Xbox Series consoles slowly losing their appeal because they were doing good there at the beginning, and then you have all the way down to the the business update where you're just blatantly seeing Gears on the PlayStation platform. So I made a video earlier that was like, look, I did feel up until that point, even with Forza going over, because Forza is a big game, but I never feel like Forza is that type of game where people are going to naturally put that with Xbox. Now, the racing people will, but for the most part, I feel like Gears and Halo has been those games. As long as those games didn't go on PlayStation, they could backpedal to a degree. Would it help? I don't know. Could they go back to exclusives? Probably not. At this point, the brain damage is massive in terms of the hardware, not the ecosystem. The hardware. The hardware is on life support. The ecosystem is flourishing better than it ever has, and I think it's going to be funny. People are going to act like I never say that ever. So then we get to this point where they are coming to negotiations. The United States and China, they're negotiating, so they put a temporarily pause when it comes to the tariffs. So now what we're having here is we're having a situation where it does look like the tariffs aren't going to be a thing. Now, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with the 90 days, or it might have been 12 months. I think it was 90 days. We don't know what's going to happen after that. We don't know what's going to happen after the 3 months. Tariffs could come right back. But the crazy part is Xbox jumped the gun and raised these prices. Like, really fast. They raised these prices. And now they're in a situation where they have to lower the prices. Are they going to do it? Probably not. I mean, you guys can put in the comment section below if you guys think I'm wrong on that. I personally feel like it would look really good if they at least came out and said, because of the change in the scenery that's going on and because of how some of the politics have changed rapidly so fast, we're going to put a pause on our price increases for 90 days. And we're going to revisit this at a later time to see if it's necessary to do that or not. Will they do that? Probably not. My personal opinion, Microsoft's been looking for reasons to get more of a return on the Xbox hardware stuff. It includes the accessories, the headset, the Xbox, because they want to make as much money from this ecosystem as possible. They want to keep the investors happy. So that's my personal opinion. And they put themselves in a situation where it's like, look, you're going to look mad suspect if you don't reverse this. Xbox needs to do the better thing for the consumer and reverse it. Because $100 for an Xbox Series X, $600 for just the regular version. $549 for the digital version. And the Xbox Series S used to be at that good moment, that good price point where you could walk into a store and impulse that bitch. $300, walk out of a store. Look, it's a little bit on the higher end of the impulse buy, but it was definitely really, really good in terms of sales. And you saw that the Xbox Series S was selling well at the beginning. I don't know if they're going to do it. I don't know if that's even a conversation that's happening in the background. But all I do know is right now, as far as things are going, if they are competing in the hardware space, it would make more sense for them to backtrack these price increases and go out at a later date, depending on more information that comes out of these, these tariffs and if they actually go through or not. But if they're not competing with the hardware because they don't care if they sell hardware or not, then it would make more sense to keep these up here because they're getting more of a margin from everything sold in the hardware space because they're making more money off of that. I'm not like an economic major. I don't know anything about it. But when I look at stuff like the Xbox Series X and I look at the Xbox Series S and I look how much of a price increase all of this stuff happened globally, keep that in mind. It was all around. It wasn't just the United States. They raised it globally. And keep in mind, the United States is probably one of the areas that they can increase, maybe not to this degree, and still compete to a point. Now, I don't think raising prices is good. I'm from the era where we lowered prices. We got lower prices on hardware, not raising prices. And this is just crazy. And I feel like they jumped the gun. Now we got to see exactly how they move. But I personally feel Microsoft, if they even remotely care about this hardware, they got to lower this prices. It's not even just a hardware aspect. It's PR in general. You know, you has like PlayStation raised prices, Nintendo raised prices. Yes, the Switch 2 is a little different. It came out at that price. They didn't raise the price after that. So I'm very curious to see how they handle this and if they're going to do the right thing or they're going to do the corporate thing. Because it's like I told you, if they sit here and they told me they're like Addict, we are going to keep the Xbox around because we're going to offset the cost of that division through everything else, through going multi-plat, through selling more on all other platforms, and we're going to keep the Xbox around from that, I would be 100% more accepting on everything going on. But in my personal opinion, I expect corporations to do what corporations do, which is to make as much money as possible and cut the fat that they feel is no longer valuable to their company. And right now, the Xbox might be valuable in terms of hardware perspective on their company, but I'm just curious on the long-term effect of that, especially when next gen starts. But anyway, put in the comment section below what you guys feel. I'm very curious your guys' opinion on this. Look, this is kind of a rant video. Do I know anything? Like I said, I'm very vocal. I don't know anything. I don't know anything about economy. I'm just an outsider looking in when it comes to gaming in general. But anyway, put in the comment section below what you guys feel about that. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button. It's always appreciated. You can always sub to the channel. We make weekly content on here. And until next time, this is Gaming Addict. I'm out of here. Peace. I'm going to be streaming Doom on Addict Arena. Check that out.